There is a silent discomfort that many people feel but few can name. It shows up when everything seems to be going well, but something inside you still doesn't feel at peace. It appears when the noise fades and silence takes over, when the day slows down and there's nothing left to do. Many try to ignore it. They fill every free moment with notifications, outside voices, constant distractions. Yet, it remains. It's an emptiness that doesn't come from a lack of things, but from the absence of presence. Have you ever tried sitting in silence without any stimulation, no music, no screen, no conversation, just you with yourself? Most people can't stay like that for more than a few minutes, not because they lack time, but because they're afraid of what they might find inside. The big issue here is that many aren't afraid of this emptiness, this solitude. They're afraid of themselves. Why does this happen? Why is being with yourself more uncomfortable than being surrounded by noise, tasks, and people? The answer might seem simple but carries deep existential weight, simply because we never learn to just be. Most of our lives are built around doing, reacting, running, solving, achieving. From a young age, we're trained to act, not to observe. We're shaped by what we do, but we rarely stop to understand who we are without doing anything. Because without the doing, what's left? It's precisely at this point that the most important journey of human existence begins, the journey inward. Unlike any other living being, humans carry a potential that goes beyond biology. We are the only ones capable of evolving consciously. But this evolution doesn't happen in the world's noise. It doesn't come from comparing ourselves to others. It doesn't arise from accumulating technical knowledge or chasing validation. It begins in silence, in the moment we stop running from our own company and finally face who we are without filters, without distraction. And in this encounter with our own being, many layers start to fall away. We realize that much of what we thought was us were just defenses, constructions, repetitions. Gradually, we begin to see what's essential and what's just noise. This ability to just be, to remain within ourselves with attention and presence, isn't a talent or a mystical gift. It's a real, accessible possibility, but rare. And it's precisely because it's rare that so many get lost along the way, trading depth for distraction, truth for performance. But the question remains, what if you were to stop today and just be, without doing, without seeking, without running, just being? Few are willing to discover what happens when movement stops. But those who go through this silence, who dive into this presence, find something that no external noise can offer, the solid foundation of real transformation. It's only when we learn to be fully with ourselves that we become capable of being with others. It's only when we discover completeness in solitude that we can create true connections, not out of need, but out of awareness. This is the essence of conscious individuality, and this is where we begin. The curious thing is that many believe they're living, when in reality, they're just keeping busy. Constant busyness has become synonymous with progress, productivity, and even personal value. But what few realize is that this urgency to do, act, solve, and achieve might just be a strategy to avoid a confrontation, being with oneself, without distractions. Most creatures on the planet follow an automatic flow. They're born, react to the environment, survive, reproduce, and die. There are no internal doubts, no reflection. Everything follows what nature programmed. But humans, for some reason still not fully understood by science, were endowed with something extraordinary, the ability to observe themselves. But not just that, the ability to stop, to choose, to deliberate, to be. This difference, though fundamental, has been forgotten. It's become common to believe that being human is just a species designation. But what defines us isn't biology, it's consciousness. It's the fact that we can act without reacting, choose without impulse, reflect before moving. It's possessing the ability to be present, even without doing anything. That's why so many get confused about the idea of success and purpose, simply because they were taught to constantly do, as if existence only had value if tied to production. How many times have you found yourself unlocking your phone, even without a reason, just to avoid the emptiness of the moment? By the way, have you ever wondered why so many people can't stay alone for more than 5 minutes without seeking some kind of distraction? It's not boredom that bothers, it's the silence. And with it, the reminder that there's something inside us that's been avoided for a long time. This compulsion for action, this addiction to busyness, is often a reflection of a mind that fears its own content. Keeping in constant motion avoids uncomfortable questions, but it also prevents essential answers. It's at this point that the idea of conscious individuality begins to gain strength. Being a conscious individual is recognizing that you can pause, that there's no need to react to everything all the time, that there's power in the simple act of being, of noticing, of not getting lost in automatic doing. And this, though it seems simple, is an evolutionary leap, because contrary to what many think, evolution doesn't just involve the laws of nature, it's in consciousness itself. When the mind has nowhere else to lean, what's left is revealing. It's common to think that silence will bring immediate peace, as if just turning off the world would restore tranquility. But in practice, the opposite happens. What emerges first isn't serenity, it's internal noise, fragmented thoughts, old memories, uncomfortable emotions. All that was pushed to the background by daily haste finally finds space to surface. That's why many people give up on silence before even understanding it. They think something's wrong when the external world quiets and the internal becomes deafening. But the problem isn't the silence. The noise was always there. The difference is that before, there were too many distractions to notice. Solitude doesn't seek instant comfort, but self-understanding, because it exposes us to the real state of our mind, without filters, without pauses, without distractions. It doesn't offer anesthesia, it offers a mirror. And this is the point where many people return to the surface, preferring the familiarity of distractions over the depth of meeting themselves. But it's precisely in this meeting that consciousness begins to expand. Observing the mind in its raw state, without reacting, without interfering, is one of the most revealing experiences a human can have. Because at that moment, we realize how conditioned we are to flee from ourselves, to react automatically, to fill every second with anything but presence. Staying in silence with attention is an act of courage. It's refusing the automatic movement of escape. It's sitting before your own mind and saying, "I'm not here to run, I'm here to see." This seeing, this act of observing without identifying with what arises, opens a rare door, that of pure consciousness. A consciousness that doesn't judge, doesn't compare, doesn't try to control. It just witnesses. And in this witnessing, transformation begins. Silence, then, ceases to be a void and becomes like a temple, a field of refined perception where we begin to understand the patterns of our thinking, emotional ties, impulses that drive us without our noticing. There's no need to interfere, just seeing already changes everything, because what's clearly observed loses its power to control us. That's where the illusion breaks, that solitude means isolation. Being alone doesn't mean being disconnected. In fact, true solitude is a reunion. It's when we step away from the world not to escape it, but to rebuild our relationship with it. It's not about cutting ties, but realizing who's really holding the strings of your life, you or the noise around you. In that quiet space, the being begins to show up more clearly. It doesn't fight for attention, doesn't demand performance, doesn't need approval. It just is. And that's exactly why many don't recognize it, because it doesn't push itself forward. It waits to be noticed. Being alone in this sense isn't social failure. It's inner strength. It's a silent declaration of autonomy. I don't need to lose myself in others to find myself in me. Being alone is one of the most underrated experiences in modern life. For many, solitude is seen as a social flaw, a sign that something's wrong. But that view misses something vital. Clarity is born in solitude. When there are no more outside voices shaping how we see things, we finally start to hear what's really alive inside us. And what we find in that silence can change everything. Solitude isn't the absence of company, it's deep presence with yourself. It's a chance to see yourself honestly, without characters, without expectations. In that space, self-awareness deepens and we start to notice our most subtle patterns. What bothers us, what we avoid, what we long for. It all shows up clearly when there's nothing left to hold up the roles we play in front of others. The emptiness of solitude, in truth, is full of answers. There's a big difference between being alone and feeling lonely. Those who understand the value of solitude don't fear silence because they understand that it's not a punishment. It's a conscious choice. The time we spend with ourselves is the time we sharpen our perception, strengthen our foundation, and grow our discernment. Those who know how to be alone never get lost in a crowd because they carry inner clarity. They don't need outside movement to feel whole. True spiritual strength is born in that space, when we can sit in our own presence in peace. Not chasing anything, not trying to fix anything, just seeing the moment as it is. Solitude doesn't cut us off from the world, it prepares us for it. It's in the stillness that we gain perspective, and from that stillness we return to life more conscious, more whole, and less vulnerable to pressure from the outside. And while some are still trying to fill the void with noise, others are learning to hear what can only be heard in silence. Because it's there, and only there, that real inner rebuilding begins. There is a widely accepted but little questioned belief that being with others is always better than being alone. We grew up hearing that unity is strength, that collaboration is the way forward, and that no one evolves alone. And indeed, there's truth in this in certain contexts. The problem is when this we is built on a self that doesn't yet know who it is. Human relationships can be one of the most enriching experiences in life, or one of the most destructive. It all depends on who's showing up in each person. When two people come together carrying unresolved fears, emotional emptiness, internal conflict, and no clarity about themselves, harmony is unlikely. In these cases, the we becomes an extension of imbalance, not a space for growth. Have you ever noticed how your energy shifts depending on who you're with? Or how some people calm and uplift you, while others drain and confuse you, even without saying a word? That's not random. The internal state of each person shapes the energetic field between them. When we connect with others without knowing ourselves first, we're basically letting our shadows do the talking, not our essence. The real we is not born from the sum of two needy halves, but from the encounter between two conscious wholes. And this requires more than a desire to be together. It requires maturity, discernment, and presence. It is only possible to relate with clarity when we know, with honesty, what we are bringing to the relationship, what is ours, what is the other's, and what belongs to the field between the two. It's easy to project expectations, past wounds, and unmet needs onto the other person, especially when we haven't taken responsibility for our own inner experience. This creates emotional dependency, repeated frustration, and a deep disconnection. But the problem was never the we. The problem is when the self enters the relationship hoping to be saved, completed, or healed by the other. Every relationship creates a field of mutual influence, and within that field, the one with the strongest energy always leads, whether they're aware of it or not. This is why so many people change their values, behavior, or mood depending on who they are close to. Because without a solid foundation in themselves, they become malleable to their environment like leaves in the wind. Real transformation in relationships starts when a person stops looking for shelter in someone else and starts becoming that shelter within. When that happens, presence matters more than performance. Listening becomes more valuable than responding, and the relationship shifts from a space of need to a space of expansion. Becoming whole doesn't mean being perfect in every way. It means being conscious. It's knowing what's moving inside you and not placing that responsibility on someone else. Because when two conscious beings meet, there are no more demands, only exchange, and no more blame, only presence. The more whole we become on the inside, the more we realize that it's not the number of connections that defines the quality of life, but the clarity with which we connect. Being with someone isn't a biological need we can't resist. It's a conscious choice that only makes sense when we're already enough within ourselves. Most of the inner confusion we carry doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from not knowing who, inside of us, is actually responding for us. We have conflicting voices, opposite desires, impulses that cancel each other out. There are parts inside us that don't talk to each other. There's what we want, what we believe, what we fear, and what we hide. In different situations, we activate different versions of ourselves. Sometimes we're controlling, sometimes passive. At times we're peaceful, other times defensive. And often we explain it as if there's another me acting on impulse. That was my ego. That was fear. Something just took over. We use these inner figures as excuses not to fully own what we feel or express. We create invisible divisions, good and bad, higher and lower, light and shadow, and end up trying to manage all those roles at once. But the cost of living divided is high. When we don't see ourselves as whole, we live trying to please one part while hiding another. We deny what we consider unacceptable in ourselves, without realizing that every inner split weakens our presence in the world. There's no way to have clarity when each part of us wants something different, and there's no way to evolve consciously while wearing masks to deal with our own inner truth. Accepting that everything that happens within, the good, the bad, what builds and what breaks, is all part of the same identity is a key step to becoming whole. That doesn't mean we justify harmful behavior. It means we take responsibility for it, without blaming the ego, the mind, or the shadow. When something inside us goes wrong, it's still us. And when something works, it's also us. That kind of honesty is what holds up true individuality. And this inner honesty protects us from the most common trap for someone who hasn't yet integrated within, being led by the loudest part of the mind, without even realizing it. When we lack inner unity, we become vulnerable. We react without thinking, repeat cycles, chase approval, sabotage our own steps. Not because we're bad, but because we're confused. To be an individual, in the deepest sense of the word, is to become indivisible. To stop outsourcing what we feel. To know that, yes, we are complex, but there is also a place of clarity inside us that can hold all of it together. When that place starts to grow stronger, inner contradictions begin to fade. What used to feel like a constant inner fight turns into a quiet reconciliation, a kind of energetic maturity where we finally act from a place that doesn't shift with the environment. And this leads us to the essential question: who's really leading your life right now? Is it you, or just a part of you that has taken control without you realizing it? For thousands of years, human evolution was driven by purely biological mechanisms. The body adapted to the environment, The brain evolved for survival, and slowly, physical and cognitive structures brought us to this point. That was nature's job, to build the foundation. But now, something has shifted. The body is already developed enough to survive on this planet. Our brain is fully functional. From this point forward, any real leap won't come from biology. Nature finished its basic task. The next step is not physical, it's internal. It's no longer programmed by genetics, but activated by awareness. This is the shift many people haven't realized yet. Living beings still evolve by default, but humans have something others don't: the ability to choose to evolve. Instead of waiting for time, chance, or environment to change us, we can observe, understand, and transform ourselves through conscious awareness. And that changes everything. Conscious evolution starts the moment we stop running on autopilot, when we begin to notice our reactions before we act on them, when we recognize our repeating patterns and choose to break them, when we respond with awareness instead of reacting out of habit. That's real-time evolution, and only humans can do that with clarity. By biology, we have a brain, but it's consciousness that gives meaning to what we do with it, and that meaning comes from attention. Not scattered, anxious attention that tries to control everything, but deep, quiet attention that observes without rushing. The kind of attention that observes before acting, that listens before speaking, that stays present instead of getting lost in automatic behaviors. Along with it comes intention, the direction we choose to give our energy. Every clear intention reorganizes our focus, how we see the world, and how we respond to it. And when attention and intention come together, the result is conscious observation, an awareness that sees, feels, and understands before choosing. That's the power to create. And that power is the starting point of real evolution. That leap happens the exact moment someone decides to stop repeating, stops living on inertia, and starts existing with presence. And as strange as it may sound, this quiet decision is more revolutionary than any change in DNA. Because real evolution, the kind that changes the being, not just the body, only happens through clarity. And clarity can't be forced. It's built. It's born the moment someone chooses to honestly see what has always been inside, but never truly observed. In that moment, what once felt like loneliness starts to feel like presence. And something unexpected happens. What once felt urgent, the need to connect, to fit in, to be with someone, begins to lose power. Not because we've become cold or distant, but because we've realized that being with someone out of need often pulls us further away from ourselves. Many people get into relationships not because they're ready to share a life, but because they're trying to escape an inner emptiness they can't face alone. In these cases, the relationship becomes emotional distraction. It's easier to dive into someone else's routine than to face the discomfort of our own presence. But relationships built on escape rarely hold truth. Sooner or later, what wasn't resolved in silence spills over in the form of dependency, frustration, or conflict. Have you ever felt surrounded by people, in the middle of conversations and laughter, yet completely disconnected inside? It's more common than you think. That feeling of being alone in a crowd doesn't come from a lack of social ties. It comes from being disconnected from yourself. When we're far from our own essence, even the closest touch feels distant. Walking alone in this context isn't rejection of the world. It's a period of silent construction. It's the time needed to figure out where you end and someone else begins. It's in this clear space that we learn to recognize which connections truly lift us and which ones just distract us. Because as long as we're looking for in others what we're afraid to find in ourselves, we'll be relating from need, not truth. There's wisdom in waiting, not in putting off experiences out of fear, but in respecting the inner time we each need to become someone who has more to offer than just their unmet needs. The time spent in solitude prepares us. It strengthens us. It teaches us how to be presence before trying to be company. And that's why some of the most meaningful connections in life don't happen during desperate searching, but in the moments when we've stopped looking. Because when two conscious individuals meet, there's no game, no mask, no bargain. There's clarity, there's real exchange, there's expansion. In a world that celebrates speed, silence almost feels like a threat. The idea of spending even a single day without screens, voices, distractions, or tasks seems absurd to many. But that discomfort reveals just how far we've drifted from our own presence. These days, stopping takes more courage than continuing. Try to imagine it for a moment. A whole day without your phone, no TV, no reading, no music, no talking. Just you, in a quiet space, paying attention to what's moving inside. Sounds simple, right? But the simplicity is just on the surface. Because as soon as the outer noise fades, the inner noise rises. The mind, not used to being without stimulation, starts throwing out all kinds of thoughts. Old memories, future worries, random impulses, buried emotions. It acts like a restless animal trying to find something to hold on to. And if you observe without judging, you begin to notice hidden patterns that usually go unnoticed. Insecurities, expectations, self-sabotaging thoughts, old inner dialogues that are still running your reactions. Being with yourself in silence and attention is a deep act of self-responsibility, because there, with no distractions, there's nowhere to run, no habit to use as a shield, no outside opinion to use as a mirror. What's left is what's actually present: you, your thoughts, your feelings, your empty spaces, and eventually your clarity. And that's where real transformation begins. Not because something magical happens, but because you stop resisting. Instead of trying to change what you feel, you just watch it. Instead of running from what you think, you start recognizing it. The practice of being doesn't take physical effort or complex techniques. It starts with one simple but powerful decision: to stay. To stay with yourself long enough for the mind to lose control of the rhythm, and for something deeper to rise. That something can't be reached through rushing or distraction. It only shows up when there's inner space. And inner space only appears when we stop running. The problem is, we're so used to running, often without even realizing, that we've forgotten how it feels to be at peace for no reason. Many people look for growth through books, practices, or complex systems, and those things can be helpful. But the root of transformation lies in something much simpler: allowing yourself to exist without having to do anything. In that space of not doing, the mind shows its structure, and the true self begins to settle. And maybe that's why so few people take this step. Because even though it's simple, it takes maturity. It takes a real willingness to look inside without judgment, without needing to fix anything, without trying to prove anything. Just being, just seeing, just existing. And it's in that deep silence, without distractions or escapes, that we discover something essential. We don't need to become anything more. We just need to stop abandoning ourselves. Because everything we've been searching for out there starts to reveal itself the moment we finally choose to stay within ourselves. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with others so they can benefit from this message. And don't forget to leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. Thanks again for watching and for joining me. Take care and see you soon.